Hello. So I thought I would make this short video about different types of staging and different types of theatre spaces in the way that different productions, different directors can use different stages to create different effects. Um, so I start by talking about what's called the proscenium arch stage. It's quite often known as end on as well, and this is a very traditional theatre space. It's where the audience kind of sit at on one side and you have the stage at the other, and there's no kind of intermingling in terms of space. You have the audience and then you have the stage. These are more sort of, as I say, they're more kind of traditional spaces, the sort that you might see in sort of more traditional West End theatres. Um, then we move on to something called a thrust stage. A thrust stage is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, where part of the stage is kind of thrust into the audience, and there's a sort of a section of the stage in sort of poking into to the audience's area. There is still a playing space that's not in the audience as well, so it often sort of looks like a kind of T-shaped um, staging area. That is very similar to one that's called traverse. So traverse is where there's a sort of a rectangular, it's often rectangular, normally quite narrow space that runs through the audience. So you have audience on one side looking over at the audience on the other side, and quite often that's raked. So the difference between thrust and traverse is that quite often thrust is where the audience are lower and it's more like a sort of catwalk, whereas traverse is much more that the audience is often raked up so you can see the people on the other side. Um, we're sort of talking more about kind of like smaller spaces now, and so I suppose what would traditionally be the smallest space is what's called a black box. So that's like our studio theatre at school. It's where there are no windows. It's sort of like it is literally just a box, and that's like a studio theatre. So it's sort of smaller stage things. A lot of these theatres kind of pop up at fringe festivals and things like that. Um, then there are two types of stages that kind of go hand in hand. They're very often linked. So sort of what would be called site-specific theatre. So site-specific theatre is where you go to a place that is exactly what the set for the play is. So if the play is in a pub, you go to a pub. If the play is in an old warehouse, you go to an old warehouse. If the play is set on a boat, you go on a boat. Quite often, but not all the time, but quite often, these are tied in with what are called promenade performances. So a promenade performance will involve the audience moving from one place to another. So it might be that one scene takes place in the kitchen and you follow a character through, and the next scene takes place in a different room. It might be that we're moving from the kitchen to the dining room. And a lot of people do that with a variety of different scripts. So a lot of Shakespeare gets site-specific staging, and you sort of follow one character's journey through. Or it might be there are other performances where a scene is on repeat in different rooms, and you walk round, and by the end you've seen all of the scenes, but you might not have seen them in the same order as somebody else, or you might come on another night and see them in a different order, or it might be that different groups of people move from one scene to another, or you get a different perspective based on that. So those are just some examples of different types of staging and different things that might be used by directors and performers. So there is one particular type of staging that I have deliberately left till last, and the reason that this is because I'm making this video primarily for you, Year 9, 9B, but obviously lots of different year groups might look at it in terms of that being useful for plays that they're studying. However, in terms of the Curious Incident, it's really designed to be in the round. In terms of that was the first sort of major kind of production of it, was in the round. And this is where the stage is in the middle and the audience are all around. It's exactly what it sounds like. And there are sorts of different rules about doing plays in the round, about sort of using triangles for performance and things. I can't really demonstrate too well in this format, so I think I'll wait till we get back into the classroom, whenever that is, to demonstrate that in a more kind of precise way. But that's just the one I wanted to leave you with. It's this idea of theatre in the round, this idea that you're in the middle and everybody is watching from every angle. So obviously it kind of slightly eliminates the possibility of having a backstage area, certainly in the performance space. With something like proscenium arch, where the audience are looking, you can have something in the way, you can go behind it and you can hide, but that's not quite the same for theatre in the round. So I thought I'd just leave leave you with that thought there.